So this session is being recorded, so if people want to come back to it, great. It'll be posted up on the web at the conclusion today. But I want to just thank everyone and welcome you to our Technical and Professional Development Work Group, or TPDW, recruitment event. So hopefully today what we hope to go over with you is essentially what this group is and what we're doing, what we've accomplished to date, and of course how you can get involved, as well as questions and answers that you may have, and contact info, and a few little follow-up items. So that will kind of be as we'll go along. Before we get started though, are there any questions or comments that folks want to put out really quickly? Okay, then we'll get started. And there's a few different people from the current technical and development work group on today, and you're going to hear voices from different people. We'll have Josh Monahan from King Conservation District, James Weatherford, who's now Thurston Conservation District, Bobby Lindmauer, who's at Snohomish Conservation District, and myself, who's your kind of guide or host today, Nicole Embertson, and I'm at the Whatcom Conservation District. So you can see we've got a nice involvement from different districts. We also have our guidance counselor, if you will, Larry Brewer, who's on, our commission help and representative who keeps us humming along. So we've got a few different folks on here to be able to answer different types of questions from different perspectives, and each one of us is going to talk about different pieces of the TPDW and what's going on. So we're going to start with Josh Monahan, who's going to give us a little bit background. He's been in this from the beginning of the technical work group, and I've just put up on the screen here, number one, just who we are generically and some of our partners. And Josh, I'll let you kind of give a little bit more history and background of how this group developed.
Awesome. Thanks, Nicole. It's fun to prepare some thoughts this morning to share with folks. And I've been thinking about the fact that we're basically in operating system version 4. You know, we all have computers and they update the operating system. You know, we're going to go to Windows 10 sometime later this year, maybe, or in the future. This effort around technical and professional work that CDs are involved in, I'd say is in operating system version 4. And I want to share with you really briefly what those older versions are and why this is an exciting time for folks to join in building this next version of technical and professional development for CDs in Washington State. Before I do that, I just want to just touch really simply on what we do. You know, we're conservation districts in the business of providing voluntary stewardship conservation services, and really at the heart of conservation services of voluntary stewardship, there are two things I'd argue. One is that thing that makes us so special that each board and each office works really hard on those individual relationships around communication and trust with cooperators, and that's why we're sought out by other groups, agencies, because we have that special relationship with farmers and private landowners, because we work so hard on that trust element. And the second element, which is really what we're about here, is in addition to having really good communication, relationship, and trust, the second piece of what makes conservation districts and voluntary stewardship successful is our technical expertise in natural resources and conservation planning. And if we just build trust but aren't really technically sound, we're not going to get very far in this work. That's not, you know, rocket science to say that. And as we get more involved, as conservation districts in the state of Washington get more involved, working with regulators, with enforcement issues, dairy, feedlot, with voluntary stewardship program, where we're coming in contact with customers outside the direct landowners we're working with, it becomes even more critical that we're thinking about our technical and professional development, not just at our individual offices, but across the state, because if one district in the state stumbles, we all stumble. And so how do we make sure that we're all working to lift up all districts together? So that's some context I just wanted to frame. So I got involved in this work in 2008 with James Weatherford, but that was probably version 3. So I just want to briefly talk about operating system version 1 and 2 and 3, and then how we got to 4. So operating system version 1 is the good old days when NRCS was the main provider of conservation technical service with private landowners. Conservation districts in the state of Washington had very little funding outside of NRCS, and really were seen as the support staff for NRCS. In operating system version 1, we were part of NRCS's team. We helped create a local connection for the NRCS team, but we were support staff to NRCS conservation planners. In operating system version 1, we got our training and job approval authority from NRCS because we were doing NRCS work. It totally made sense. And then in the late 80s and 90s, there was a shift that started to happen, and NRCS staff across the state started to shrink at field offices, and at the same time, conservation districts were looking to figure out how can we find local funding to continue the needed level of technical assistance around conservation planning. And so you see in the 90s and the early 2000s, conservation districts hiring conservation planners more and more across the state, leading conservation assistance with landowners, not serving merely as assistance with NRCS. And as that happened, NRCS got out of the business of job approval authority to conservation district staff because they are not doing NRCS work. It's not appropriate. NRCS continues to offer conservation planning and lots of great training and a great partner, but in terms of reviewing the work and reviewing job approval, they got out of that business. And so we moved into operating system version 2, and what that looked like was key leaders across the state in the CD land said, oh my God, we got to backfill for this change in roles. And so you saw some leadership at the commission and at key districts across the state get together and say, how do we create a system that's going to replace this? And they got in a room, and maybe 4 or 5 people, and started crafting some ideas about how to create a system. And here is the magic and challenge of conservation district versus NRCS. If you put 4 or 5 people in a room and come up with a plan and try to roll it out to 45 conservation districts, oh my goodness, there are lots of reasons why that's going to fail. And operating system version 2 stumbled because they had a great vision. They just didn't go and do the legwork to bring the 45 districts into the vision before it got down the road. And so we were stuck in operating system version 2 for a while. And then it kind of stalled, and it was, as we are hunting herd of cats. So, and then when I came involved in this in 2008 with James and some other folks, and Ray Ledgerwood and others, there was this sense, okay, we're not going to do it the same way where we just get 5 really smart people in a room. Let's approach this the same way we approach conservation planning. And so in operating system version 3 for the technical and professional work group work, we did what we do as conservation planners. We went and talked to all the other CDs. We took the voluntary approach. We listened to the goals of CDs around this issue, identified concerns. There were real serious concerns. What were the hesitations? How do we overcome them? And we looked for low-hanging fruit. And so in the last several years, we've been tackling some of that low-hanging fruit, which has included starting with coming up with a format for conservation plans at all districts across the state, whether they're doing a CREP plan or a dairy plan, same format for that plan. We work together to develop needs assessment and skills assessment for all districts across the state so we could help inform Wade and look for other opportunities to offer statewide training. And then in operating system version 2, we're still operating with no outside funding, essentially. We're just a bunch of folks across the state, about 40 or so, working to improve the technical professional development of CD employees, and began envisioning the certification for dairy planning. And we just realized that to move this work forward, especially the certification work, it's going to need more secure state support and more secure statewide support and more secure statewide funding. And so over the last couple of years, Nicole and James and Larry and Ray and Bobby and others have been working to make a case to the WACD, to the Commission, with Mark Clark's support to how do we make this something that has solid funding from the Commission so that it carries forward and can do significant work, and we don't have to just rely on voluntary contributions from districts across the state. So that's really where we are, and it's really exciting because we're just finishing the first year where we've had solid state funding to do some of this work, and there's some great things you can see. The newsletter that folks are hopefully getting is one of the early indications of some of that work. The dairy certification's launching. The riparian certification with CREP is moving forward really well. So it's a really exciting time, and there is now statewide support, and there is statewide funding for this work. And so I guess that's kind of we're just beginning now to build that operating system version 2, which is that statewide approach that has funding and support. So really exciting moment, and hopefully there'll be more folks that join this work so we can really have a strong version 2. So I don't know, other folks want to chime in on comments, but that's how I wanted to frame this work at this point.
Great, thank you so much, Josh. Any other TPDW members want to add to that history or development? I think Josh did a great job. Well, I think one thing, this is a lovely lead into our accomplishments, and Josh just kind of highlighted a few of them, but you can hear all of those different versions, and it hasn't been collected or created in a vacuum. There have been so many different people involved from districts across the state in getting this going and making all these deliverables happen and develop it and creating the mission and everything else. It's been incredible. And over the last couple of years, last year was the first year we actually had real funding for this, that we put together a work plan. There was funding available, and we started actually executing different tasks. And I'm going to have James kind of go over a brief summary of some of the highlights of things that we actually accomplished in the last year. But to know that, we're a little bit limited now, and that and we'll kind of do a next step of what's coming up. But now that we have funding, and now that we're starting to do work, and now we're realizing, holy cow, we need a lot more people to help us with these efforts and everything else. And this is kind of the evolution of today and getting you guys involved. But I hope that you can hear that conservation districts and individuals like ourselves and you are the ones who have created this group to date, and now it's our responsibility to keep that momentum and get it going. So James, I'm going to have you kind of chime in and just give us some highlights on things we've accomplished so folks know what we've been up to and what we're capable to date, and we can kind of launch forward in the future in the next slide.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. I apologize, I'm going to do some background noise. I'm actually on the road to the commission meeting. I planned to be there by now, but it didn't work out for me. So, Josh, that was a great history version. I like that. Pretty well lays it out for us. So, like Nicole says, last year was the first year we ever had any real funding that was substantial and helped us to put this effort forward. For several years, we just kind of limped along and figured it out as we could with the support of our districts and on our own time. Now, with that funding, what we've been able to do is begin to define what conservation planning is and what kind of education and training we're going to need to do it appropriately. And up to a point that pretty much it's all the same. It's all natural sciences. But after a while, as you get up the expertise levels, it starts to split out and specialize like anything else. So we began to find that, and figure out a pathway to get those trainings, and figure out what it is you want to do, or your district decides what they need from people, which is a huge benefit. So we could then start with our training program. For a couple of years, we were using the information we were gathering to help determine what trainings were needed that way. And now we are being way more intentional about that, and we were starting to work on developing a training program that's very intentional and a little more regional based, so that we can do it more cheaply, get people to date trip trainings and stuff that is tailored specifically for their needs in their area, instead of a broad-based thing. And then we will also be developing the major trainings that are broad-based, like the nutrient management trainings, the comprehensive dairy nutrient management training, that kind of thing, which, by the way, will be coming up in the next year. We're going to build that into our budget to put that on in the next year or less. So that was another one of our accomplishments there, but I've been able to actually intentionally put all that together and figure out how it works, and work with NRCS to begin to develop an actual full comprehensive joint training program, so that we train NRCS people and PD people side by side with PD that can server integration rather than NRCS always doing it. That way we can kind of be a little more centric to CDs than NRCS has been. Secondarily, we kind of started figuring out who we have in the state and what their expertise and training is currently and what they're bringing to the table when they come to the district. We started that work a while back and we gathered an awful lot of information, but as time dragged on and through attrition, it kind of fell by the wayside, and we didn't gather it in a way that was as useful as we thought it might be. It wasn't as user-friendly, I should say, to gather the information and the data that we wanted from the information we collected. So now we are working on a separate database to be able to do that and find certain levels of expertise in your region where that might be a need. So that when as we develop a shared resources, a shared planner program, and a mentoring program, we'll be able to find where the knowledge and expertise is there. Also, we've done put up a newsletter and our own website, which is just awesome. So that we can post trainings and information on conservation planning, information on tools and where to get them, and so on and so forth. Also, we can kind of promote ourselves and our staff, our technical people, and the training they have. And when they get new trainings, we can advertise that so that people see that we are working diligently at technical improvement, improving our education and training constantly, so that nobody thinks we're just went to college and then we went and got a job and that was the end of that. We don't want to do that. It's technology and science can't really evolve, and we have to stay up with it. We want to stay relevant. I think that's pretty close to maybe being it. The other thing that we accomplished with that money, though, is by getting all that work done that we did this last year, we also now we have funding that was given to us for this year, which is our complete ask. We didn't get funded last year the amount of money we asked for. As you know, it was a very large chunk. This year we actually got what we asked for, which is just amazing. So that's why I'm on my way to the commission now to address that. I think that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Does anybody else have anything to add?
I think that was a great summary, James. Thank you. Other members want to add anything big to that?
I think James and Josh have done both a great service to the group by defining the way. I mean, these are not uncomplicated task forces that we're working on, and you know, it's a long, ongoing thing. But I want to say that just the fact that we have the commission support and we have funding is such a huge thing for us, because I've been on multiple groups, task forces, committees, everything else from WACD, and this is the first time where we've got like a legitimate chunk of money to be able to pull something off, and this is awesome. And we have great people at the helm, so just so people know that you guys have been amazing.
Nice add, Bobby. Thank you. So I think a nice segue here, as you could hear, a lot of the work that we did was development work and getting things going, the certification, the training event, you know, organizing tools and templates, our communications, the web page, the newsletter, you know, now having a route of getting out to folks, mentoring and job shadowing, science research and effectiveness monitoring, even kind of starting to develop how do conservation districts do demonstration or research projects in the, you know, kind of vacuum that extension is oftentimes leaving behind in places. So these are kind of what we've got going, and we've added a few things in our next work plan, such as quality assurance, and then, you know, just coordination of the group and getting things going, developing a charter. And I want to highlight a few of the items that are coming up in our next work plan. And you can find our work plan on the web. We've posted it up on our website so that you can see it. So I'm putting up a Excel version here because it's a little clearer, but nonetheless, you can go to the website, which I'll pull up in a minute, and you can go through each one of these a little more, you know, thoroughly and see what's interesting to you. Things I want to highlight. So this is what we've proposed coming up, and we do have funding to support this, so you can see what tasks are interesting. So under the technical expertise, mentoring, and job shadowing, actually I'm going to go all the way to the top, proficiencies and standards. This is essentially to coordinate with human resources in different parts of the state and develop job classification standards for some of our bigger planning areas such as dairy, riparian, small farms, nutrient management planners, forestry. Some of the bigger ones, just to start there, is kind of what we found is pretty effective, and then all of the other ones will kind of be identified and fall in. But it's nice when we have a variety of different expertise on this group so that we can get different perspectives and inputs into some of these tasks, and that's really valuable. So that's kind of one piece. The training, as was mentioned, this is actually a big one in collaboration with NRCS. They're very interested in coordinating trainings or collaborating on development of trainings. And the first part of that, of course, is figuring out what do people need besides just WADE, which is a nice annual training event. Communications, networking is really great at that. How about folks want something specific for water quality and there's demand? Well, let's put something together. So, you know, creating things that support the different disciplines that are out there and highlighting what things are really important. Whereas we know we sometimes need specific NRCS trainings to meet qualifications or certification requirements for some of their different things, but they're not oftentimes every year, maybe they're every 3 years, whatever it may be. If we have enough CD folks interested and need something specific, we can work with NRCS on getting that going. So this is pretty neat. And then the sky's the limit with this too, right? That's kind of step one. And then it's like, well, what do conservation districts want to do just on our own? What are really important things? And we could have webinars that are more frequent if someone wants to develop something like that versus the face-to-face things that maybe are less often because that's a bigger financial input for folks to travel and create. So we have a lot of openness there, and ideas are what is really going to grow that training section. The certification piece, this is, as we mentioned, the dairy and riparian certification processes have been pretty much developed to this point with a lot of input from a dairy group doing that one and riparian doing that one. And they're just to the stage where we just are working out the details, and hopefully we're going to be launching these in the fall where folks can start applying to that. In addition to just the qualifications of a certification, there is a continuing education piece that's linked to that, as well as a lot of the other things we're talking about, mentorship, training, etc. This certification piece is intrinsically linked to many of the other areas in our work plan. That's why dairy and riparian tend to get kind of elevated to the top because they're oftentimes supporting the certification. But having other disciplines in here and having leaders that want to, hey, we actually have a lot of forestry people that aren't getting enough attention. If we had a leader that wanted to lead that charge and get that certification going, or some of these other areas, that's what we really need, and that would be awesome in this group. So this certification bit is going to need a few folks to just kind of help us get that going, not just participate in being a certified person and planner, but also helping us get that program going. Planning tools and templates. So a couple things that are going to be happening here. One is actually developing a list of all of the different templates and tools out there by discipline. Some tools and various things really do cross over, but having folks help us find all these things that are out there and put those all in one place under the different disciplines that can be accessed would be awesome. And then we can discover where are gaps, what's missing, and then create a framework to make that tool or develop those outreach materials that are needed, etc. So we really do need to identify that. And one of our big tasks that's going to start this fall is actually putting together comprehensive planning groups, small farm, dairy, riparian, etc., and actually have those folks get together and say, all right, what are our current planning tools that we have? What's the template? Does everyone have the same one or a different one? How can we create one for all that new planners, even seasoned planners, can just go and grab that template, and no matter where you go in the state, there's consistency and sameness. And not only is this really nice for districts, but it's also really nice for our partners in the regulatory world, that they can move around and see that there's consistency and there's a robust background to the tools and the things that we're using. So that really supports all planners in the end, that there is a level of confidence in what we're doing. So not only with those templates, but also the materials and criteria that are within that planning, and putting together all of the different materials and everything else. So this is going to start, we're trying to find folks who are interested in championing the effort and leading those different groups as we go forward, and kind of making that happen. So, and then again, as I mentioned, kind of creating tools as are needed. The communications and outreach, hopefully everyone is on this call because you received our email or some other method of communication. Visit our website, whatever it may be, and you have seen, wow, there are outreach materials. So this is one of the best ways that we're actually getting out to all folks in the state, all planners, as long as we have their email address, and getting information out to them. It's a really powerful tool to announce, as was mentioned, announce trainings, upcoming events, new tools that have been developed, fun facts, you know, whatever it is, things that people need to be aware of, in liabilities or different legislation or laws that are coming up, whatever it is. This is a really nice way that we can get out to folks and connect with them on a consistent monthly basis, as well as our website that's been developed. So just keeping those things up. And then, of course, if we have some creativity out there and folks want to add more to this and develop more, get creative, somebody actually wants to do a Twitter or Facebook account, that would be great. Go for it. Those things take a little time. So again, someone to champion the effort or be involved with that task. Technical expertise.
Hey, Nicole.
Yeah,
Nicole,
Larry.
could we take see if there's any questions before we continue there?
Sure. Are there any questions for those ones to date? I was kind of going to do questions at the end, but I can take them now if there's any.
Okay. All right, you just want to give them a chance.
Yep. So yeah, feel free as I go through this that if you're jotting questions off to the side, after I go through this whole piece, I will kind of open that up. Kind of wanted to go through things first. But feel free to chime in or interrupt at any point. So the technical expertise, mentoring, and job shadowing piece, as was mentioned, this is identifying the expertise level of different folks over the state in all different areas, whether that be the major disciplines of plannings, or you have a wetlands specialist, or you have an air quality specialist, whatever it is, identifying those folks so that even though we all work in our own little districts, that doesn't work quite anymore. We can't all operate within our own little box or sandbox. So we really have to open that up and start sharing our expertise and utilizing other folks across borders. This is really smart in a lot of ways, that we connect with each other a lot better. Or, if you've got one expertise that you may use twice a year, you don't need to hire someone, but knowing that that person is 3 districts over and you can call them and they can come down and assist with something is pretty awesome. So being able to identify who all those experts are so that you can then go on our website and find that person and be able to talk with them is awesome. And we have developed an Ask the Expert page of our webpage, which we're slowly but surely filling out all of the different people and disciplines on there, and any feedback on that's great. Or if you want to be an expert, even better. And this is a way that folks can just email about, dairy or small farm or engineering or water quality, and just ask those questions as needed. So that's part of it. And of course, mentoring for new employees and or folks in the certification program who just want to learn more about an expertise. And if you have a very small district and it's not in your zone, you can partner with another district, and that person can be your mentor and help you kind of get going in your planning or in developing a level of expertise or a specialty. So a lot that's happening there, a lot of that is just either finding those people or being that person even better and getting that going. And then the last couple areas here, the science, research, and demonstration. This is really coming together. Something specific that we're working on is discovery farms, and this is just in the development. We're now licensed as a state to be a discovery farm state, and I won't go into all the details of this. I'll defer you more to the website to find out more, but this is just a method of working with landowners and producers on testing and discovering new practices, or finding the ones that they're doing now and how can we modify those to be better, as well as just a framework on doing research or effectiveness monitoring of your current programs or practices. And then lastly is quality assurance. So this is kind of a separate project we're still trying to work on getting funding for, but this is developing quality assurance implementation and projects and framework for districts and employees to operate within. So I know that was a lot of information. Again, as I mentioned, it's on our webpage and you can go back through and read all of the details, but are there any questions about any of those items you want me to elaborate a little bit more on to date? And feel free, if you can type it in, or if you want to unmute yourself and ask questions, please do. We'll have a Q&A session as well, but anything specific to this would be great. Okay, so then the one thing I did mention a couple times is our webpage, and I just want to pull that up as well and just let you know, as I was mentioning, that the work plan is on here, so clicking on that and being able to read back through this, if something really sparks your interest, awesome, and you're like, wow, I'd love to help with that, or wow, this is interesting, maybe they haven't thought about this and I'd like to assist with something of that nature. Looking through and wanting to, you're like, well, that's interesting, I have no idea how I would help with here. At the end of this webinar, in the next few slides, I'm going to go over how you can get involved and what that means and what are our different levels. But this information and so much more is on the webpage. Any feedback there is always appreciated. Okay, so then here's our little sales pitch, if you will. What are some of the benefits of joining our group? And hopefully you've heard a lot of the history of what this group is and how it has evolved and developed over time, and the type of work that we do. And this work is done by district employees for district employees so that we can all be better supported and more influential in what we do, as well as better connected and collaborative with each other. And so some of the benefits of being on this group really is, it is a great opportunity to meet new people and network with other CDs and agencies from all around the state. That's a huge value to this, and it's been extraordinary for myself, and I'll have others kind of chime in with their experience, but it's been a really neat experience for me to be able to connect with so many more people. It's really neat. As well as getting involved in the programs and development at a higher level. So it's a really nice opportunity if you're just trying to round out your resume in some way, or you're like, gosh, I like the work I do here in my little pod, but I also want to be part of something bigger. And this is that bigger piece that you can be involved in a little bit or a lot, depending on your time allotment. But it's neat to be able to have a hand in getting these things going, having your voice, or if you are an input of a lot of voices in a region, to be able to collectively take that and give it back to these programs and what we're developing is very, very valuable. It's going to strengthen your leadership skills, obviously, by being able to work as a team and operate either as a leader or a team member. And that both of those positions will develop leadership skills in unique and really valuable ways. You can also learn how CDs work and support them at multiple levels, as was mentioned, and shape the future of conservation districts locally and nationally. Amazing, the work that we're doing here is nationally recognized, and there are efforts in other kind of in a national levels to try to do what we've already done. So we're actually elevating this up and sharing this. And I've had many districts from, as I kind of give national presentations on different things that I do, I've had other districts come up, or other state district people come up and say, how do you guys do this? And this is amazing, and we would love to do this. What's your framework? What's your model? So just so that you know, what we are doing is a very leading program development that's happening here, and it's pretty cool. So with that, I would love others, and Bobby, if you would like to expand on your comments earlier and just kind of share why you've gotten involved with this group and what has been the benefit to you personally and professionally.
Thanks, Nicole. I think that's a great segue. And, you know, I've been here at the Snohomish City for about 18 years, and I've been involved with multiple WACD task forces and committees and groups. And this is the committee that I have seen actually get some legs under it, and actually to have us come and get funding for this and support from the commission is, you know, by far, you know, such a great thing. And, you know, we've got such great skills. We've got such great professional development folks behind us. We've got such great leaders in the Conservation District, you know, continuum. The reason that I do this is for all these things, getting involved in programs to develop at a higher level, getting us our names out there, getting us to know that we are the guys that have the skills and development and have the technical expertise in what we do, and the opportunity to meet new people. I mean, the networking that I've been able to get in joining any WACD and commission program has been amazing. You know, it's allowed me to go to the national conventions. It's allowed me to go to statewide conventions. It's allowed me to go to commission meetings, just to meet and greet. And in that, it provides our office here in opportunities that we would not have if I didn't get involved in some of these big leadership committees. And but in the end, you know, I guess I could say that my the biggest thing for me that I get out of this is just the satisfaction that we're moving conservation districts forward in getting people to understand what CDs can do and what we have technically and what we have to be available and to support other avenues, efforts, everything else that, you know, we're the go-to. I want to see us as the go-to for conservation efforts and natural resource conservation efforts. And we've got everything in line, and it has been very successful over the years, and it has been very rewarding over the years that I have met more people joining these committees than I ever would have met just in my own one district. And at the state level, at the national level, I just really enjoy the opportunity to be able to do this. And yes, it takes time, and it takes funding. And now, thankfully, with this tech group, that we've been able to get some funding to be able to do that. But I have to say, this tech group, you know, the committee as a whole is, you know, you got the best of the best from the Conservation District leadership, you know, to help develop technical proficiencies, show that we are, you know, the people that should be doing this work, and we can develop some really great programs. I'm really looking forward to, you know, we've got the dairy certification, we've got the riparian certification. Our next venue, I hope, is what we've been talking about, is the small acreage or small farms certification, which I'm going to be a part of that. But it is just really a great opportunity to get your you know, not only get your name out there, but to get your district out there, but also just in strengthening your leadership skills as well. You know, I can't support this whole effort enough because, you know, like I said, I've been here 18 years and I've been trying to be involved in as many things as possible over the years. And, you know, we have some really great folks amongst us in the conservation district world. And, you know, with the commission, you know, we got with Larry and Ray, you know, we couldn't do this without them. And, you know, this has just been a great opportunity, both from a learning side and from a moving forward side, that, you know, I'm really excited about what we can do with this program. So that's why I'm involved, is from a growth standpoint as well as something that is, you know, deep and developed, I guess, in my soul of where conservation districts need to be going. And it doesn't take a ton of time, but, you know, the time that it takes is, you know, it comes back in spades, I guess, is I guess my final comment is, you know, I really, really believe in what conservation districts stand for, and we can stand for a lot more, and this is the way to do it. So I really appreciate all the opportunities I've been given. I have a very supportive board on this, and if anybody else that wants to get involved in this and they may not have the support of their boards, you know, call on us. I'm happy to go and talk to any board about the benefits of what this type of work can do to any conservation districts. I'm happy to go and talk to any board, as I'm sure you guys are too. But, you know, this is just a really, really important project that we need to develop ourselves as the go-to when it comes to natural resource management. And I think we've really stepped forward, and we really have right now the opportunity to show that, and I think that we can show that, and I think that we will show that in the future. So I guess I'll end it with that.
Thank you so much, Bobby. Would Josh or James, would you guys like to say a word or two on your involvement? And you both have already spoke quite a bit, so it's totally up to you if you want to elaborate on anything you've said.
I guess the one thing I just say is it's been so rewarding to be able to work statewide and think about how together we can all make conservation districts so much more sort of technically sound and really respected, not just by our cooperators, but by those regulatory agencies and all those other folks that I think we're trying to help see the power of voluntary stewardship. So it's really fun work, and I look forward to working with more folks on it.
Great, thanks. Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me, Nicole? No.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, James.
Great. So to address that question a little bit, when we started this, the whole idea was to just be able to demonstrate that conservation districts did indeed have some technical capacity that was worthwhile and needed to be recognized. Where we ended up with it is a long way from where we started. This thing has become something that is about to go national, and all districts across the country are going to be doing it. When I started in on this, my first instinct came from years and years ago when, as a farmer, we were talking about the need for an organization that could take all the different disciplines and condense them and distill them down into something that made good common sense for land users and agricultural producers. When I got to the districts, I realized that the districts could be that organization. But in order to do that, they needed to get a little bit more intentional in what they do and be able to demonstrate their capabilities a little better. You know, we have it, we just have to be able to just demonstrate it. So that's where we started with this. Mm-hmm. And to be a part of this is just amazing to me, because it is something that's becoming something that's going to be so huge. And it's the best 8-second ride I've ever been on. Now I got to get into the commission, so talk to you later.
All right, thank you so much, James. Appreciate your words. Larry, did you have a comment as well?
I would say the commission has supported this work group because improving the technical capacity of the districts, they recognize as being important and vital to continuing our reputation of the districts. As Bobby said, the go-to place for all things resource conservation-wise. So I see that they see the importance of this group, and that's one they've supported last year and again this coming year.
Thanks, I
Nicole?
appreciate that, Larry. Thank you. So just a brief on here, I just wanted to present the different levels of involvement from kind of a higher level to, you know, the worker bees, if you will, but we do have a structure that can be found on our charter, which is on the web page as well, so you can access it there for more details of how we're creating our structure, et cetera. But there is an advisory council that are kind of appointed members that represent all of the different general areas across the state so that we do have input. And that advisory council, all of those folks, and we also have representatives from NRCS and the commission and WACD and WADE, et cetera. We have their voice and they provide direction and input into these long-term goals and interests of this group so that we can ensure that our direction is broadly supported and is getting input from the whole state and all of our partner organizations. So from that level, we then have our leadership team, and this leadership team is essentially composed of the strategic coordinators, which I'll get into, a chair, someone leading this group. We've got an advisor from the commission on there and a sitting member. So this leadership team just ensures that those strategic goals are being carried out, and this is happening. Our strategic coordinators are essentially all of those tasks that I showed you. There is a coordinator making sure that those things are being met and that there are work plans and things are happening there. And they communicate with the task leaders, who are the folks actually carrying out the individual tasks within those groups. And as mentioned, this is under employee development, communications and outreach, technical expertise and support, science and planning, and then our administration and finance. And these folks will be elected positions. To date, we're kind of default on a lot of those, but we were asking for folks to self-nominate or to say, like, I would like, you know, to do that, or I know someone who'd be great, and nominate that person for these areas. And then the advisory council will select those people based on their qualifications and their interest levels. So those are the strategic coordinators. That's a nice level of involvement to think about. Task leaders. So these are folks who stand up and said, I have expertise and interest and I want to do that task. So you want to help with developing the training and making sure that some aspect of that is happening, or lead our communications effort, or assist with part of the research, or the mentor. Say, I will take over developing the database of finding all the experts in the state and making sure that happens. So a task leader is someone who says, here is our work plan that's established. I'm going to carry that out. I'm going to get my work team together and meet deliverables. So this is a very nice and easy level of leadership to get involved in if you have a real passion for some area or a member of that, as well as when I mentioned about something, let's say it's already going, but you want to make sure that it happens for, you know, education and outreach, or for Firewise, or whatever it may be. You want to be the champion in the effort for a specific discipline. This is that task leader involvement level. And then a task member, if you want to be involved in the group, but you don't have a lot of time, you can maybe put in 10 hours of time that you can get reciprocated, whatever it is. A task member level is probably perfect, that you want to be part of a group. So let's say, for instance, when I mentioned about creating these planning groups where we'll have small farm, riparian, et cetera, that are going to figure out, okay, here are our templates and developing that. And you're like, I want to be a member of that group. I want to participate. I don't know if I have a lot of expertise or how much time I have. That task member level is probably perfect. Or you're like, I would love to assist in part of the communications effort, but I can't do all of it. that's a perfect level. If you have ideas, being a task member, or you want to do multiple things, you want to be like, oh, I'd love to do a little bit of the training. I also want to help with some of this research development stuff that's happening. You can be a task member on individual levels. You can be a task leader on individual levels if you want to put more time and effort into this, or you're really passionate about something. I feel like that's what happened to me personally, is that I really wanted to see certain things happen, and I felt like I had expertise and energy and passion that I wanted to get out there, and I just said, well, I'll do this and I'll do that, and it's worked out lovely, and I absolutely love being part of this group. So if you're one of those go-getters as well, you can take those on. Just be sure you can follow it up. A really important part of however you get involved, as Bobby mentioned, is that there is we've got kind of a template that really does outline, here's your time and work commitment so that you're not overextending yourself. And you do have that approved and reviewed by your board, your manager, or whoever's appropriate at your own district, so that you don't quite get in over your head, which can also happen, but that you're realistic about it, and that others know, like, I've got this amount of time, or I've got this interest, and so that's recorded. But you can always expand that as you get involved and you're more interested and excited about different things. You can always evolve and expand, or downgrade if it's just too much, or you took on too many things, or you really want to get more involved in one thing and let others go. So we want to ensure that there's a lot of flexibility to capture your interest without overextending it. So with that, with the last few minutes that we have here, are there any questions that folks want to ask about anything we went over today, or commitments of this group? As I mentioned, it can be as simple as 10 hours of your time per month, up to far more than that, whatever you wanted to devote to this group, as long as it fits within one of our tasks and one of our work plans. So that, I know, has been a question of folks, but is there any other questions at this time that any one of us can answer for you? So if anyone is speaking, I'll let you know we can't hear you. Your phone might be on mute, just in case.
We do have a chat came up.
Yep, I see that. So there was a question, are you interested in developing a basic engineering track for technicians and other engineering tracks for other disciplines? Absolutely. So this is something that this is one of those expertise and one of those levels that there are a lot of engineers out there, or maybe there's not, and more districts would like to learn how to partner with them, that I think this is a brilliant area, and you've now identified a nice area of expertise that if you have interest in leadership there, or help develop something out, absolutely that's something we could add in. Yep. So we can talk more about what that means, or how interested you're in it. And so there was another question about, do we volunteer, or do you and who do you contact? So there's different ways here. You can volunteer your time if you would like to do that. A lot, because we have funding now, a lot of that time can be monetarily kind of taken care of or reciprocated. So the time you put in is actually paid for, so that if you want to do more hours than we've got funding available, that's on to you and your district to approve those times. But we, in our work plans for various things, we say, okay, we've got 100 hours of paid work here, and as the task leader or task member, you'll have that taken care of within that task. So it really is dependent on those, but absolutely your time can be put forward. And the next slide too, just to follow up with you there, there is different ways on, you're asking, well, who in the world do we then contact for interest? So you can either contact, I put James and myself, our emails up here. You can contact anyone in the group, but just because we have, I guess, the first line, and we can kind of get this out to other members. But more important is I put together a Google form application, and you can catch this on our website, or copy it from here. I know this is a long and convoluted email address or a web address, but on there you can indicate at what level you want to be involved, in what areas. We ask for a little bit of extra information, and then we'll get back to you. So that's a nice way to get it started, so that we can route that, and someone from our group will get back to you to work out where and how you want to be involved. Another question, I mentioned a template for tasks and hours. Is that found on the website? No. So this is one of those things that once we kind of work through where and how you want to be involved, then we'll get you all the extra, the template and everything else that you're going to need for that. So we'll start with this participant application form, and it looks, it's pretty simple. As I mentioned, we're asking for your name and email address so we can contact you, of course. And as I mentioned, what level do you want to be involved? As I went through those different levels available, and then generally those broader areas, and then you can explain a little bit more about here are the qualifications or areas that I have more interest in, and then you can kind of fill out a little bit extra if you have something specific or ideas in what you want to do. So this just helps us get started, and then we'll contact you one-on-one and work through everything a little bit more clearly for you. So I think that's all the questions that were in the chat box. In our last minute here before we get things, is there any other questions that folks want to bring up or comments? Okay, any comments from any of the other TPDW members before we kind of close out?
This is Bobby. I thank you so much for doing this, Nicole, and putting this together, and all the other main members on the task force. And I guess I would still just encourage anybody, if they're kind of on the fence on this, that this is just really a good opportunity. And we're going to work with those districts based on funding. We've got the funding to do this. Sometimes there's districts that are really apprehensive about the time that can be spent on this, and we're just looking for whoever can participate at what level, because we feel that, at least personally I feel, and I'm sure you would agree, that everybody has something to add to this, and it's only going to make the program better, and it's only going to make the project better. And so we're just looking to move forward from here on out, and I would just really encourage anybody, if they are still on the fence on this, that this might be just a really good opportunity, and try it out. If it doesn't work for you, that's fine. But I think this is just a really good opportunity for folks to jump into something different and out of the box for them.
Thanks, Bobby. Perfect. Well said. So yeah, exactly. It's like, just give it a go. If it works, it works. And I have a feeling it will. If you're on the call today, at some level, you'll probably want to be involved. And so again, a one-on-one conversation, now that you kind of have a good idea, is totally welcome. You can contact any of us. And all of our contacts are also on our webpage as well. So you can really find a lot on here, but under contact us, you'll find kind of generic stuff of who's on there, but feel free to contact any of the folks, and you can kind of find us that way as well. And again, as I mentioned, here's that application link as well from our webpage if you want that as well.
And one of the other things I wanted to ask too, Nicole, was on the Ask the Expert page. I mean, we've kind of put on those there, the people that we know and think that can answer those types of questions. But if there's somebody out on the call that really thinks that they could be on the Ask the Expert page, whether or not they have a specialty in something, that might be something also. Even if that's all that you can do and participate in, it might be just a great little link right there.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. So the ones that are not hyperlinked, the black ones are ones we don't have folks for quite yet. So again, if you know someone or you are that person, please let us know. We'd love to add you to that. So, and again, it's not like you'll have a flood of questions. It's a few here and there, but it's a great way to be involved. So any last questions from folks before we sign out? All right, well, I want to thank everybody for their participation today and for tuning in. And this has been recorded, so you can, and I'll post it up on our webpage under events so people can find it there. If you want to send this to someone who wasn't here today but you think might be interested in, feel free. Otherwise, we hope to hear from you. Feel free to fill out that little mini application and someone from the group will get to you, or you can contact any of us directly and chat more about things. So with that, thanks everyone, and we really appreciate your time and hope we see you again and we get to work with you. Very exciting. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole.